There you go. Okay, today we're at the Veterans History, I'm sorry, the Veterans Memorial Center, and my partner Joe Davey and myself, Paul Julian, we're going to do a Veterans History Project interview. The date is December 7th, 2023. And we're interviewing Mr. Richard Johnson. And so, with no further ado, Richard, where were you born?
Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay. Where who your parents? What did they both work?
My father was a milkman, and my mother was she worked part time and then was a housewife. There was 5 boys in my family. I'm the youngest of 5 boys, so
Okay.
she had to take care of the kids.
Okay. And did you have any brothers and sisters?
4 brothers.
4 brothers. And did any of your brothers also serve in the military?
All of them.
All of them. And were they all Army?
No, my 2 oldest brothers were in the Navy, and I should have learned. But the middle one, he was in Vietnam when I enlisted in the Army. By the time I was on my way to Vietnam, he was back.
Mm-hmm.
And the one next to me, the oldest, older than me, he went in after I came back. He was drafted. And so the 3 of us were in Vietnam at different
Really?
times.
Really? What was your well, we talked, as far as feelings about the service in general, but in particular, the Vietnam. So, did your brothers that served, did they, what were their feelings? Well, I mean, one was drafted, but the other went in like you went.
No, they were both drafted.
Okay,
And I'm the only one that enlisted.
okay. And did they, what was their feelings? I mean,
It was more or less to do what was expected of them.
okay,
Neither one of them went on to college after high school, and it was expected that you left.
Okay.
And following the path of our oldest brothers, we went into service.
okay. And no, back to you. Well, what was your parents? What were you said you were the only one that wasn't drafted to the 3, right?
Right.
So what were your parents, your dad and your mom? What did they think about? Well, about joining the service, but in particular during the Vietnam.
They never really talked much about that. I don't think in those days Vietnam was a popular subject. They my mother was sad about it,
Mm-hmm.
but at that point I needed to do something. I was a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school in 12th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and to support a girlfriend that was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way to Vietnam is when I found out she married the other guy. But I had 3 years ahead of me to do because of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I was patriotic.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate your candor, especially during one of the worst, most unpopular war that we've experienced. So, Rick, you said that Rich, is it Rich?
Rick.
Rick, did you? So you dropped out in 12th grade, huh?
Correct.
And so it wasn't a motivation. One of the motivations wasn't to get the GI Bill, to go to.
No.
Okay. And the jobs that you had before service, did you?
Minimal jobs.
Minimal.
Delivering bakery goods, waiting tables,
Okay.
whatever you could get at that age.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, Rick, what did you when you went into the military? What was that? When you enlisted, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What was in your mind?
Well, when I enlisted,
It's not scared of.
no, I never even really thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I left Minnesota. Was to get on that plane, first airplane ride I ever took as well. It was I went in under the buddy plan with a friend of mine who got drafted. I was RA, he was US, if you know what that means. Regular Army, your service number, we used service numbers back then, not Social Security numbers. And if your service number started with RA, you were regular Army. That meant you enlisted. So you got 3 years. If you were drafted, your service number started with US at 2 years. And that's the way the Army.
One of the few benefits of being drafted, I guess. Huh?
Well, I enlisted for school.
Mm-hmm.
After I took my basic training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and my AIT at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And when I got to Fort McClellan, they issued us field gear and all this, and I said, what am I going to need this for? I signed up for computer school.
Right.
And they laughed and said, you're in the infantry. You're at Fort McClellan, Alabama. This is Tigerland. You're in the infantry. And at that point, I started an investigation,
Mm-hmm.
IG, Inspector General
Mm-hmm.
investigation, which I never heard anything about. 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, I was on my way to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Assigned to the 9th Infantry Division. And they said, I think it was the company commander said, when the school is filled, you go to the needs of the Army, which is always the infantry.
Mm-hmm.
And the school had been filled for 2 years ahead of time, but they didn't tell me that. So that was my indoctrination.
So this is the first one that I've ever heard that got hoodwinked from a recruiter. God, this is learn something.
Happened all the time.
All the time. All the time. And I mean, and the even in my time, I enlisted in '73, and the you heard it on the news, but my particular state. Well, for me, I enlisted, and I was wanted to be a signalman, and the guy asked me, do you want me to could I go ahead and take the orders, be in charge of orders of the other two people? And I said, well, yeah, sure. So this is like the day before I was to leave, and I went home, and I'm driving home, and I'm got at a light, and I looked at it, and it had me down as a quartermaster. So I drove back and said, you need to change this, and and after a few days, they did change it, But that's just the way they did business. I don't know if they're any better now. I don't know. But
I don't know either.
and it was because they needed quartermasters a lot more than they needed signalmen. But what did you leave behind? So you left behind at that time a girlfriend, right?
Who was pregnant.
That was pregnant, which, it sounds to me like, Rick, that you wanted to do the right thing. You were gonna.
That was it was the only way I could think of it that I would be able to support her.
Right.
The military would provide medical
Yeah.
for her and
Yeah.
an allowance.
Yeah.
But it was not to be.
Okay. And There now, digressing a bit, why did you choose the Army? Because of your brothers? Or?
Because I was a high school dropout. The Navy wanted graduates. You had to be a high school graduate to go in the Navy, the Air Force. I think Marines and the Army have been the only two that would accept a high school dropout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just a little aside, I work with a Sea Cadet unit, and so Navy Sea Cadet, and I keep up on, what the Navy's doing, and I don't know what the Army's doing, but the Navy, because of the recruiting, they've dropped the ASVAB. I think you can get a 10 or something. They dropped it that low. It's just right. If they need people, they're gonna. And also they have programs now for people that are overweight to try to get them within. So
it's more like a Boy Scout camp now.
Right. What was your initial point of entry then? You went from Minnesota
to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
And then
That's boot camp. That was boot camp.
Basic training, they called it. Boot camp was with the Marines and the Navy.
Okay.
Army
Basic
was basic training.
And how many weeks was it?
I think in 8.
8. Yeah, that's about what the Navy was. Then after basic training, then you ended up going to a school, right? And ended up
Fort McClellan, Alabama.
And you're thinking that maybe your orders were wrong, or
And they weren't.
But. So after the infantry training, did you have any other?
No. Right at a couple of weeks before Vietnam of leave. And that was it.
Do you have any, Rick, do you have any vivid memories of anything, any of the training as far as whether it be basic training or infantry school, any kind of memories that really stick out that you think about?
2 weeks after I was in basic training, I was sitting in a dentist chair, and they came in and told me that my mother died. And after that, I don't remember a whole lot. I just went through the motions. I didn't want to get recycled back to the beginning of basic after 2 weeks of hell. So I just went through the motions.
It just changed to where you just want to get through this and move on. And,
Yeah,
that
was it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Did you specialized? So do you recall any of the instructors in either the basic training or the infantry?
Not specifically. I was afraid of most of them.
And you're just get it done.
They were big and bad.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to cross them.
And they didn't want any mama's boys, especially knowing that you were probably going to Vietnam. They didn't want any.
No, they did want to train you, and they told you that over and over. Pay attention. You're going to need it.
Okay. And your first assignment was Vietnam.
Vietnam, 9th Infantry Division, A Company, 2nd of the 39th Infantry, 1st Platoon.
Okay. Before we go into the wartime service, which is, to me, it's the most important, did you get, out of basic training, did they give you any promotions based, or between basic training and infantry, did you get any promotions?
No, not until they couldn't, as I understand it, they couldn't send you overseas unless you were a PFC, Private First Class E3. And so that's when you got promoted, when you got shipped out.
Another small advantage.
Took another appreciation. When I went in, I was making about $99 a month, and I think that'd give me another 25 or something like that. But you got hazardous duty pay. I'm not sure exactly how much that was.
Now, what was the hardest part of that transition from being a civilian to a soldier? Was there a what was the hardest part?
Taking orders.
Taking orders?
I kind of grew up in the streets. When the street lights went out, that's when you had to be home.
Mm-hmm.
Or when the street lights came on, I should say.
Yeah.
That's when they wanted you home.
Yeah.
And we pushed that limit too. But,
Okay.
you know, I wasn't used to taking orders, and I felt that there was a lot of people giving me orders that didn't have a whole lot of brains. But I was dumb in a box of rocks because I enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
That was when wasn't the smartest thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm. And what's the easiest part of the military lifestyle?
The easiest part?
Mm-hmm.
In Vietnam, there was nothing that was easy. But after that, I do have a certain amount of esprit de corps.
Mm-hmm.
I am proud that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But easy, it's like when you get back here, it's like any civilian job, really.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to follow orders.
Right.
And,
Which is all the thing that it's just very difficult giving who's giving them. And, you know,
correct.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now we go to Vietnam. You served from August 1967 to August 1970. You served from August 1967 to August 1970, but you were in Vietnam from
January 68 to January 69.
Okay. Okay. January 68. Okay. January 68 to
January 69.
Okay. And I don't know if you have a whole bunch of them all put together, all bundled, but what are some of your main recollections of the experience?
The first day over there, you get off the plane, and the heat and the smells were obnoxious. It smelled like a sewer. And I think it was about 105, 110 degrees, and I'd just come from about 20 below zero in Minnesota. It was hard in that sense, but I got there on January 28th, I believe, or 29th. The next night was the Tet Offensive, where all the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong hit all the military bases. They blew up the Benoit ammo dump. We were at Camp Bearcat at that point in time, and we didn't even have a weapon yet. And they were scrambling to get us to the armory, to get us M16s, ammo, and that was the first night. And so...
That was your first impression.
Yeah. Yeah. You were scared from the beginning. I was scared the whole time through. But you follow everybody else.
Rick, the environment was nothing that you ever experienced before.
No, everybody had a weapon, for the most part, in my area of military occupation. Everybody had a weapon. You know, whether it was pistols, knives, rifles, whatever. Everybody. The first time I'd ever seen that, other than deer hunting back in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So and everybody is looking over their shoulder. and all kinds of stories.
Paranoid, yeah.
You know, everybody telling scary stories.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what to believe.
So Tet Offensive was the first or second day you were there?
Well, the first night, I believe. I'm not sure if I got over there on the 28th or 29th, and I believe Tet was
29th.
early morning of the 30th or the 29th. I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it was the 29th. Yeah.
And we got there the day before because we were in a barracks, and we didn't have all of our gear yet.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about how far were you from the hostilities? I mean, to add to the environment that you got thrust into, were bullets flying where you're at, or what?
I'd say within a mile. I mean, it was like the mother of all 4th of July celebrations.
Really?
The sky was lit up.
Really?
There was bombs dropping. There was people scrambling everywhere. Nobody was walking slow. Everybody was moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
It was nighttime. We didn't know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Our NCOs are trying to get us organized and get us weapons and to get us out on observation post, berm guard,
Mm-hmm.
to protect the area. Anybody they could, BODY.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you got a weapon here, you stay here, anybody,
Right.
you know. That was the deal.
And so you hardly, I mean, you just got there. Was anybody have a sense of, was there anybody that was calm, anybody that was collected and, I don't know about calm, or, you know, anybody that you were around, there's anybody that gave people a sense of, you know, security as far as like, well, you know, he's not losing his mind and he's not, you know.
The senior NCOs, they did most of it. You know, the E6, E78s, first sergeants, and once in a while you'd see an officer. The ones with experience and age
Mm-hmm.
kept us calm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys my age, we were 19, we were wigging out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were scared, not knowing what to do, and
Yeah.
so they didn't want us shooting anybody we shouldn't be shooting at.
Right. Right.
And
But did they say, well, did they give you any kind of assurance that, I mean, they're not gonna, no.
No, they didn't want to shoot. There was you at that point we didn't know the difference between a VC and a civilian worker.
Mhm.
They all, to me, you
Look
know,
the same.
pardon the expression, they all looked alike.
Right.
We didn't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So
This is very confusing.
very confusing.
Yeah.
Very confusing, and it was that way for quite a while.
And it didn't seem, and probably a lot of the NCOs, that even with, you know, even with experience, they were not together, huh?
No, some of the NCOs actually had experience from Korea. There were senior
Okay.
NCOs, they had combat experience from Korea,
Mm-hmm.
but they were getting to the end of their terms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you were in a direct combat role, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna wait a second. Did you have like you said, Esprit Corps? Did you have like, because everybody, you know, there's a lot of people in that same situation? Did it make you closer, and did you?
I had a few friends over there, but we hesitated to make friends. You always had your buddy's back.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as being a close friend, no, I never had any close friends over there.
Okay. A bit later on, did you end up, after you get out of that, whatever you want to call it, that craziness, did you, when you got to the other duty station, were you able to have a spirit of corps and have some friends? And
You got to know people better after the indoctrination at Camp Bearcat. I was assigned to A Company, 2nd and 39th Infantry, and which was out at a fire support base out in the Tules more, closer to the jungles and or the Mekong River or the Mekong Delta. It was not as chaotic,
mm-hmm.
but doing the same thing. We did most of our traveling by chopper.
Most of your traveling by chopper?
Yeah, they pick us up, drop us in an area, and we'd do a sweep or search and destroy, and do sweeps. And that's where we would get into most of our firefights would be during that period of time.
And Rick, did you do that all throughout the year? You went
for about the first 6 months. I did that, and then I was it was 4th of July. I was in '68. I was with a guy in my unit. He was from the South. See, I remember he had a real heavy accent, and he didn't like black people. I had no opinion because up north I had 2 black people in high school. That was it. But he were drinking beer at the EM club when we got back to fire support base. He got drunk, shot his rifle off into the air as M16, and spouted some stuff using the N-words. I happened to be with him, and that's when I left. And shooting, I didn't want to be around it to begin with. I mean, the guy wasn't too smart.
He just lost it, yeah.
So the next day, the company commander calls us in. He realizes who did what. He told me, he said, I understand you didn't do anything. He said, but we have some angry people out there, and you might get hurt. So
The
that
company
day,
commander?
yeah. So that day, I was shipped up to 3rd, 5th Cav by Way and Fubai, up by the DMZ, and to a mechanized unit that was operational connected to the 9th Infantry Division. Him, I don't know what happened to him.
But
Never seen him again.
But Rick, they got you out of there. Huh?
Immediately. It was a time in America where there was a lot of racial tension, and it was over there too.
Yeah.
A lot of racial tension in the Army, and so I ended up from the Delta up to the DMZ, and there at least I got to ride around in a track, APCs and stuff like that. Didn't have to walk so much, but and it wasn't really as much fighting up there.
Okay. Did you have? Well, let me ask you then. So, we started in January of '68, and you talked about May.
July.
Now,
Roughly, I could be off on these dates.
Okay.
It's over 50 years ago.
about mid-year, mid.
Yeah.
What do you, and you were transferred somewhere else. You said it wasn't as much fighting.
No.
But what during that last few months? What do you remember? Anything sticks in your mind as to
Of the
the experience, the whole?
the first 6 months of the being with 2nd and 39th, I remember a lot of firefights. One specific, I had a platoon leader, Lieutenant Kitchen, And he decided that we would get up in the middle of the night and move. It was more of a search and destroy, but usually we never ever moved at night because we're in their backyard. And so me and a sergeant, E5, a buck sergeant named Jake, I can't remember the rest of his name, but we had a starlight scope, and we're up there on the rice paddy.
Starlight is pre-night vision.
Yeah, yeah, it was a starlight scope, and yeah, it was a big bulky thing. It was one of the first ones, but you could see at night. And we were up there, and it was probably somewhere around midnight, and we were looking, and all we could see coming across the rice paddies was a wave of bodies. And we got a radio, yelled, incoming, here comes, and then all hell broke loose. Lieutenant Kitchen, he took an RPG in the chest, blew his head off and his arm. Several other guys got killed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Rick. Sorry it took you there.
That was the most, the worst
Terrible.
memories probably was that. And stuffing them in body bags and getting a dust off in there. I mean, they were dropping mortars around us, all around us, and got us out of there.
That was the worst, and then so then when you end up going up to the other station, this was after, right?
This was between the time I got there and the time in July. These were
when you got transferred.
one of the main firefights where our lieutenant was killed, and several of my buddies. And there were several other firefights that we were into during that period of time.
Not to the extent of.
Well, they were all people who got killed in all of them. I was lucky.
Did it? Not to belabor. Did it get better once you got transferred? You said it was less fighting.
Yeah, it was a different type of fighting. We were closer to DMZ. It was more. We actually had naval support. A lot more armor. 155s, 155s. The only and most of the I think most of the fighting was closer to the Ho Chi Minh Trail over to the west along the jungle route. They had the jungle route, and the NVAs would come down from the north to the south on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Yes,
And we were east of that, closer, moving over to the ocean.
And so the search and destroy, and you didn't have as much. That wasn't what you did.
No, it was more support.
Okay.
You mechanized rather than infantry.
Okay.
I mean, in the 2nd and 39th, we were picked up by choppers and brought, dropped off, picked up hot LZs, that type of deal. Up north, it wasn't like that.
So the tempo is not as much as when you first got there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but you did you say all throughout though you unfortunately you did engage all up until
Well, yeah, much less so up north.
Okay.
And my last couple of months, I got to be used as whenever they needed me as a classified courier.
Oh, wow.
They'd send me from Hue Phu-Bai area down to Dong Tan, Benoit, to the headquarters with documents. And whatever I could find that was flying that way, I had priority. That was kind of neat. I liked that. That was kind of fun. I liked flying in choppers and planes, and Uh, so that was a relief, but that wasn't steady.
It wasn't steady.
No.
You didn't do that full time, yeah.
No.
Rick, so you get to January of '69, and I know the war's still going full bore, right?
Mm-hmm.
The TED is over, right? The TED is over. It was over
Right.
like in May,
I don't know the dates. Of the
but it was over before the
Yeah.
time you left. So where did you go from when your next duty station?
When I left, I had got orders for Fort Lewis, Washington, and I remember saying to my buddy, I'd never been to the East Coast, and he said,
Or West
"That's
Coast?
not
right?
the East Coast." He says Fort Lewis, Washington's in the West Coast. I didn't even know where it was. So Washington State, Tacoma, Washington.
Yes, sir.
So that's where I went there, and I was in the 6th U.S. Army NCO Academy. They finally answered my call for school, and they sent me to the NCO Academy, but they sent me to typing school for 2 weeks and made me a clerk.
How were you with that?
I mean, 2 weeks, I said I already had typing in high school. So I did my last year and a half there at Fort Lewis.
And did your opinion? I mean, what did you think of it? Did you like it, or?
It was a job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't make a lot of money, but and I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was a start, but I couldn't wait to
Get out.
get out,
Yeah.
get on my own.
Active duty wasn't your thing, yeah.
No.
Did you during this time? Did you stay in touch with family and friends?
Oh yeah,
Did you? By letter.
yeah. It's funny because now you got these things, and they're a computer, they're a phone,
Yeah.
they're everything.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a tool. It's an all-purpose.
But there, you had to have a phone line or a letter. I did write letters on C ration the side box of a C ration, make a postcard out of it and send them. I did do that. It's funny, somebody mentioned something about that, and I said, I used to do that. They thought I was in the Civil War. You know?
Did you have like any time to get some R&R, any kind of relief, whether it was let's start with Vietnam. Did you have any outlet? Did you?
Yes, I did. I believe it was Christmas time, and I got to go to Hong Kong.
That's neat.
And 2 days after I was in Hong Kong, my tonsils just blew up, and I ended up in a British military hospital. And I was there for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Missed my flight home and all that. They made a record of it there and all that. And I got home back to base, and they had me down as AWOL. I deserted when I was on R&R.
Was that hard?
It took a while to straighten out, and I did straighten it out. I had pictures of me in a hospital bed. And
Oh, how ridiculous!
yeah. But I did get to see a little bit of Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
That was about it. I had in-country R&R to Vung Tau, and that was on the southern coast of Vietnam.
Would you really consider that like an R&R?
Oh, it was much of it, but it was a relief.
Yeah. When you got to was it Fort Lewis?
Yep.
Was it like a lot better? I mean, you had what Navy calls liberty and.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was more like a a civilian job. It took me, I was a E5, so
So you
I
made
got
E5.
separate rations. I got an apartment off base.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I could, you know, as long as you showed up for work, you were fine.
Yeah.
And
Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
so,
Never in your mind did it have any change like, hey, you know, I could, you know, maybe I can go for another, never,
no, No.
never went there.
I tell you, um, it wasn't a pleasant experience, a lot of it, but it got me out of West Duluth, and I had to grow up.
Yeah, I relate to that. No. Yeah.
So, in that sense,
Yeah.
it was a good thing.
Yeah. Did and this is kind of, did you have anything, especially in when you were in Vietnam? Did you have anything for good luck? Did you have any, like a good luck charm or something?
I always had a St. Christopher medal on.
Okay. Yeah.
I had, I was in a firefight once, and it was a long firefight, and they were across a rice paddy in the jungle firing at us, and we were maybe 200 yards away from them firing at them, and our choppers came and dropped CS gas, only it hit us instead of them, and our gas masks were all wet and didn't work. And so we're choking on the gas, and then the door gunners would come in on choppers and be firing. And I took a break. I took off my helmet and lit up a cigarette, and that was all I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
For a short time, somebody trying to wake me up, and I had
From the gas.
I had top of my head creased, and they just put some coagulant on there. I forget what you call that stuff. And
Like a liquid bandage.
yeah, it was that was it. And so you're fine. That was, and where we were at, if you got dusted out, if you medevaced out, that was the only time you would get a Purple Heart. If you got nicked or something, like, nobody wanted one. Nobody would take one. I mean, that would be a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened to me. But it knocked me out because I lit up a cigarette. And I had that good luck charm around my neck. And I figured, well, that's a save me, you know.
That wasn't what that chemical wasn't Agent Orange, huh?
Oh, we were in Agent Orange. A lot of the jungles we were in, it was like wintertime in Minnesota. There wasn't a leaf on the tree. They'd drop that stuff, and everything would drop off the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was all over.
Did Rick, were you able to avoid any adverse? Were you able to avoid it or no? Yeah, from being in, you know, the.
No, actually, no. They consider me a disabled vet.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I went was my thyroid. Started having problems with that after I got back, and then I had prostate cancer after that.
Mm-hmm.
And they always go back to what are your brothers? What health do they have? And none of my brothers had any of the problems I did. None of them did what I did either.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, several medical issues and 2 heart attacks. I feel in good shape, and I walk 6 miles a day now.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know anything about the disability part of it until I talked to volunteers similar to yourselves.
Yeah.
Who said, no, you need to talk to your county rep, and I did, and he had me fill out some paperwork, and they sent me down to Minneapolis for a full physical, all this, and they said, yeah, that was the cause, was Agent Orange. I didn't know it, and yeah, but it reminds me of a story of the Air Force guys who they had these drums, 55-gallon drums. They cut them in half the long way, and they had barbecues for all the guys.
Mhm.
Those drums were Agent Orange drums.
Never heard that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, wow.
Well, this the little aside. Did Rick hopefully the VA took care of you, right?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Because we don't always hear that. You know.
I'm. They consider me 90%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, they didn't treat you. They didn't treat you that well coming back, certainly. But
No.
at least if you're harmed like you were, they needed to, you know.
Yeah, they did, and I do go to the VA clinic yearly
Mm-hmm.
for medical checkups.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I mean, that's great. Whether it's as far as whether it's Vietnam or post Vietnam, do you remember any particular humorous events, or humorous or unusual events that you could look back and say, hey, you know, that was pretty funny, you know? Pretty serious, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty innocuous.
Mm-hmm.
All that pops in my head as far as that stuff goes is being in a parade in uniform, full dress uniform, and I guess that's where the esprit de corps came out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always felt good about being in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like looked like patriotism to me. It seems like patriotism. That's good.
Yeah.
So before we get into the end of the service experience, Rick, what's the best part? Was the best part of your service? It kind of, what was your best part of the service? In other words, what did you take away from it that you felt like there was some value I got from it? What was the I know you alluded to how you were before, and then you went in, and you know, it changed you. What was?
Well, I guess you learn quickly that it isn't all about you. It's it's about others, and that's why you're in the service. You're serving.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now let's go to the end of the service. This means we're getting to the end of this thing. The day you're at Fort Lewis, right, and you're getting out, what kind of memories do you recall? I mean, how did you feel, and what was in your mind?
Laughing at the re-up NCO. And they asked me if I wanted to, re-up.
Yeah, yeah.
Let that bitch take. Maybe bring back memories.
Did you? What did they? Besides asking you, hey, why don't you stay? Did you have? Is there any kind of a pomp or ceremony that they had, or?
No, it was, shake your hand, thanks, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But no parties. They don't, it wasn't like a retirement party, anything like that. It was.
Okay.
Most of the people, they were waiting to do their time.
Yeah, they were waiting for their date.
Other than the senior NCOs, but I do, and I still wear.
Your dog can't
That's
see it?
neat.
No.
That's neat. When you returned home, okay, did they treat you different than what the stereotype is, what they treated the Vietnam vets coming?
I think some people were apprehensive about talking to me because of my experiences. That maybe go back to World War II or Korea when they called it shell shocked, which is now PTSD.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And I really don't think it affected me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a survivor, if I wasn't a survivor, I probably wouldn't have made it. But I was always, you know, hiding. Somebody's going to shoot me. I know it. You know, somehow you're always ducking down, and that was over there.
So,
And but people were afraid to talk to me.
mhm.
You know, he just got back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
He was in the infantry.
Yeah.
So they were
Apprehensive.
yeah.
But nothing, what I'm hearing, they didn't show disrespect and,
No, I seen that in San Francisco. Was it
Yeah.
when I came back, and we were warned not to wear uniforms in places, and that, you know, and I was proud of it. You know,
mhm.
I guess I missed the hippie era
Yeah.
because I was in the service,
Yeah.
and I
And
just
based on that mentality, you can be free and, you know, let your hair down, but that's not the course that you were on. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with it.
right.
And, okay. And the ones that were, you know, acting that way, they had no sense of, you know, they had no sense of what was really going on
No, you have
and
to
the
live,
sacrifices that you made, so.
you have to live the experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Were you, as far as your family and community then, which is a small, right, it was small West Duluth, did they give you a night, you know, glad to, no?
No, because I didn't come directly home. You know, I stayed out in Washington for 18 years after I got out of the Army.
So,
I would always come back home to visit
right,
to Duluth, but I
set your
lived out
roots out.
there.
You started your life out over there.
Right. I had several different jobs, a couple of different marriages.
Mm-hmm.
Searching. And that's, when you get out of the Army, that's what you kind of do. You search for your spot,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, where you're heading.
Well, you were a clerk, right? Was that,
Yeah, at the end, they made a clerk out of me.
did you go on into the civilian life and find a job doing,
No, out there in Washington, I drove tanker for Union 76 for about 10 years, delivering gas to gas stations and all over the place. And, that's what when I left there. I came back to Minnesota in 1986, went back to school. I got my bachelor's degree at the University of Minnesota in psychology, and my master's degree as well. So my brothers used to call me a high school dropout dumb shit, but none of them went to college.
yeah.
So I had to rub it in their faces.
One up.
So
Did you, Rick, how did you use it?
I retired from a local county, Carlton County. I was a child protection worker. I did child protection for my last 15 years.
Hey, then people weren't trying to necessarily kill each other, but that wasn't like that doing what you did didn't most of the time give you a warm and fuzzy feeling. You saw a lot of.
There was times when I wanted to hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But that's why I went into that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Make a
had
difference, yeah.
certain feeling about kids.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
That was my way of doing it.
Mhm.
If you last 15 years at that job, you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine the turnover rate.
Yeah, I was glad to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I felt good about it. I did. That was.
No, that's commendable, really, Rick. So we talked about. Was it hard readjusting, Rick? Even when was it hard to readjust? Did it take you a long time to readjust to civilian life?
I don't think it did. Mainly because I wasn't that much of an introspective person. I was living for the day, and
Yeah.
you know, I didn't have to look deep within
didn't
myself.
Didn't keep looking back.
Yeah, I looked ahead. You know, history's history. You know, You can't change it.
Yes, sir. You were able to use a GI Bill to go?
Oh yeah, I used all of that up,
Yeah,
and then some.
as well as I did. Did you, so now we're gonna get into these, heartfelt questions. How did service affect the way you relate to others? I'm talking to a guy that's got psychology degree. Did the service affect the way you, now I'm not just talking about Vietnam, but the whole did it affect the way you related to others?
Yeah, I would have to say definitely, because before I went into service, I would consider myself more of a loafer. Jumped from menial job to menial job, and I never had many goals. What the service did is kind of point me in a direction, even though I didn't like it, but it pointed me in a direction of what you got to do in your future if you want to survive here. You have to have goals. You have to set goals.
You can relate to this being both my sisters are in, one's a psychologist, one's a social worker, but it sounded to me, to go back about a half an hour, the statement that you said that you were a survivor, and so one of the things you have to, I think, Rick, you have to decide, I think, many of us, either you're going to be a survivor or a victim. You decided to be a survivor, yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Join any veterans organizations?
No, I'm not a joiner. I've been to BFWs and the American Legions, and I do drink alcohol, but I can't sit there at a bar and
Yeah.
drink with people and
Yeah.
get drunk. It's not in me to do that.
Yeah.
Although I like my beer and wine with dinner
Right.
and stuff like that, but
Right.
I'm not I enjoy that stuff in the small doses, but
Right.
I'm not
Day
somebody-
after day.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I gotta stay busy. I try and when
Family.
you get old now, I'm 75. I gotta stay busy. I gotta do something.
Same with me.
You slow down anyhow when you get older.
Same with me, and that's just a little aside. That's the problem with, at least for enlisted, as far as VFW and American Legion, the people that the younger people, now I'm 69, the people that are like were in the service since like probably when you get into like the 40 years and on, they're just not joiners. They
No.
just don't want to. I think it's like the VFW and the American Legion are for like World War II and Korea, and maybe some Vietnam, and that's.
Yeah, when I got out of Vietnam and went to a VFW, there was all mostly World War II vets and Korea vets,
Mhm.
and they really didn't associate with us. It was
Mhm.
like two separate people at the bar.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
you weren't
then-
you weren't in a World War.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I would say that they had one hell of a war.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to have been in it.
But they wouldn't want to be in your war either.
Yeah, but it's just
Different
it's
mentality.
the VFWs are slowly folding.
Yeah.
The VFWs and the American Legions need to be one unit, I think. They need to merge if they want to survive.
I agree.
You
You know what it reminds me of, real quick, and this is churches. And in particular, I'm Catholic. The churches up north, it's just the people have changed. You know what I mean? It's not that they look at religion, especially a conservative one like Catholicism, and you know what I mean, it doesn't meet their needs in a lot of cases. It's just the mentality's changed.
I was raised Catholic. I remember talking to a priest in Nam after a firefight, and when kind of looked at him and asked, "What do I do? I'm confused. I'm scared. And He said, "So am I," and walked away.
He's
That
doing
was
all
it.
he could to
Yeah.
help to
He was
survive
honest.
himself.
He was scared as hell.
Yeah, yeah. So now, life lessons. Did you like any kind of particular life lessons you learned that we haven't talked about from the military, from being in the service? Like you said that you had to, make your own way. You couldn't, you couldn't. You know what I'm saying? You had to pull yourself up and.
Well, the life lesson is, that you have to do something. You can't be a victim and do nothing. Nobody's going to do it except you. If you want, if it's to be, it's up to me. Is that what they say?
Mm-hmm.
And that's I believe that military service should be mandatory for all males. But that'll never happen.
No, no. Okay, then we're getting close, Rick. The service, did it change your feelings about war in general and the military in particular? Did it change your
That's most of that is political. I didn't know anything about the political side of like Vietnam. To me, it was you're in the service to protect people, and that's what we're going over there to do, is to protect the Vietnamese from communism. I didn't get any of the politics. And if I had gotten into the politics, maybe I wouldn't have wanted to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't about the politics to me. It was America was a protector. It was like World War II and Korea, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were going over there to protect the people.
Okay. What message would you like to leave for future generations that hear this interview? Any particular message of your experience and that you want to emphasize?
If you want a free country, serve your country.
Okay. Last four. Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veterans experience that you have never? Anything else?
No, I think I pretty much. I'm not afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a lot of veterans that don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good catharsis, to get it out, to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And although I got to say that in thinking about coming over here, I couldn't sleep last night. The memories start coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
You just put it out of your head, and they go away.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go away. But being reminded of all this, brings back
Yes, sir.
those times where
Yes, sir.
then you can't sleep, and it'll take a little while for it to go away, but it will go away.
And Rick, Joe and I, we very, very, very much appreciate you letting us interview you. And what we can tell you is that most other people that actually been in combat, and we understand that 90% of the people were not doing what you were doing. 90% of the people who went to Vietnam were not doing search and destroy and all that. So, but we do really appreciate that that you let us interview you. So, last two. What would you like people to remember about your story?
I guess that life sometimes is not easy. and you have to search. You have to have the wherewithal to go forward. And you I guess you call it willpower. If you don't have willpower, you can't do nothing. You know,
You have to have staying power.
yeah, you have to be able to fight off the demons.
Okay, is there anything else? I know we picked your brain here for, I don't know, it's been about an hour and a half. Is there anything else that we haven't covered, Rick, that you, based on my line of questioning and what you understand, what our objective is here, anything else you'd like to bring up?
I guess my objective was to pass this on, because sometimes I can't talk to my own kids about this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So if they watch this, maybe they'll have a different idea of what I'm all about. You know, I was just a grunt in the Army. You know, and not only was I a father, but a grunt. You know,
But the grunt, but you served honorably, and you, for whatever, you know, you did not wait to be drafted, and you, of the people up to, I'm 69, the people up to our age, you're one of the few people that actually could have died the day you got there, and that, you know, you were able to gut it up, and you know, Rick, you know as well as there's a lot of people that are not able to do that. So, but no, I mean, I really, from my heart, I mean, I thank you very much.
you're welcome. And be surprised what you can do when you have to.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna, with that being said, it's like 3:35 p.m. and we're concluding the interview. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Nice job, Ray. Yeah, it's a good job.